Mesachta Shvuos Daf Yud Aleph Amar Aleph. We're starting from the top Elamiyata. Yesterday we brought down a case of the Tmidim that were brought. So we said that you could redeem it. And Rav Chisda Rabbah said this din of Rabbi Yochanan, and Rav Chisda said, "Listen, I don't want to listen to you or to your Rebbe, because if it's a Kedushas Haguf, how could you redeem it? Where did the Kedusha go? Kedushas Haguf is something that you can't transfer. You can't take it out of the Guf. Imagine, if it's Kedushas Damim, it's an outside thing, so you can do it. But something that already permeated the Guf, how could it be transferred?" So the Gemara said, what kind of a shaila is that? So Rabbah said back to Rav Chisda, we find by Keteiris that they prepared 368 monos of Keteiris for the year. 365 corresponding each day. Yom Kippur had an extra 3, but they never would. When he did the kmitza with the Malay Chafna with his full hand, it never took the full. There was always left over. After 60, 70 years, there was so much left over. What would they do with it? So it says that the Aftinas, the ones that made the Keteiris, so the Lishka, who had to pay them a salary, they played a game, even al das on the Aftinas. They would take out from the Lishka, this is for their work. But we're going to use their work money, which is chulin, and buy the Keteiris. So now the Keteiris belongs to the base Aftinas. And we're going to buy it back with the new shkolim of the new year. Because the problem is, what's the problem? By the Tmidim.
So how do these guys get paid? Workers?
I forgot to bring out the point. The point was that at the end of the year, every day they had to be makab 2 Tmidim. But there were 6 behemoths in the pen. And they would pick 2 out of the 6. Now it's the end of the year, so it comes the next year. What do you do with these 4 behemoths? You cannot use from the old shkolim for the new year. Tavshin Pei Hey has to be from Tavshin Pei Hey, not from Tavshin Pei Vav. Or Tavshin Pei Dalit. The year is over. Now you have these behemoths that were paid with the money from the shkolim from Tavshin Pei Dalit. Yetzishin Tavshin Pei Hey. What do you mean? It's Chedesh Nisan. You have to come up with new shkolim from Tavshin Pei Hey. So what do you do with these 4 behemoths? So he said you can redeem it. So the Gemara, how could you say you redeem it? How could you take out the kedusha from the animal? So he said by the Keteiris, we see you could do it. So the Gemara tried to say, Keteiris is just kedushas damim. And that's kedushas haguf. Kedushas haguf, to take out something that's a mamish kedush in the guf, you can't take it out. So I know the kishkis, like you said, it's permeated. But kedushas damim is an outside thing.
They paid the workers for making.
They paid the workers for making the original Keteiris. Now you have left over so much Keteiris. So they would take the money.
Workers had this money, so the same money.
So no, they didn't even give them the money. They said this money belongs for the reward for the for the house of Aftinas. And they said, look, this money, let's buy with their money the Keteiris.
So how could you use somebody else's money to buy?
No, they agreed. There was an agreement. And then they would buy it, and then they would give them back money with the new shkolim and buy back the Keteiris. They would give the Aftinas the money for the Keteiris that they took. They bought it. Now the Lishka buys it back with the new shkolim. They don't lose nothing. Beis Aftinas got back their money.
There's really never an exchange.
It's like a funny exchange. Yeah.
Exchange.
Yeah. From ein hand to the zweite. So the Gemara says now, Elamiyato says the Gemara only now, if you're saying Tul Yom only has the Kedusha of Kedusha's Damim, it's a very light Kedusha. So then Elamiyato like to puzzle Tul Yom. So why, by Tul Yom that touches Kedusha's Damim, it shouldn't puzzle it. Tul Yom is somebody who was table himself, but he's missing Hariv Shemesh, meaning that the nightfall.
Yes, to the end.
He's missing the end. There's a different type that you have Tvul Yom Harav Shemesh, like by Zov or Yeledis. Besides the Tvul being the table themselves, and besides the night going through, they have to bring a carbon the next day. So they're missing a carbon. That's called the Chusa Kippurim. It's the Chusa the Harav Shemesh, the night. So Tvul Yom, even though it could eat the different things. But it says it doesn't have the koyach it has the koyach to passel something that's mamish kodesh, But Kedushas Damin, it shouldn't be up to Pasul. Alama Tanya, so why do we learn Machteshes, the Ketaydes, that they smashed in the Keli called the Machteshes, Nifselas to Yaim. It becomes Nifsel by a Yaim. Why? The Ketaydes is only Kedushas Damin. So how could it become Pasul? You have to say the only way a Yaim can Pasul, it has to be Kedushas Aguf. So, but if it's Kedushas Damin, it wouldn't be Pasling it. So the only reason why we said that it's Pasling, obviously by a Yaim, that obviously the Ketayres being in the Machtesh is not called a Yaim, it's called Kedushas Aguf. And if you're going to say Kol Kedushas Damin mi Pasli, and if you want to say that even things that are needed for the Akrava, which is only Kedushas Damim, becomes Pasul B'Tful Yaim. And that's why the Tful Yaim Pasul the Ketaydes, even though it's not Kedushas Aguf, he says that's impossible. Well, it's not. We learned the Fedish in the Mishnah. HaMenachis, the Kabim Menachis of HaYachid, Meilim Behem, Meshu Hukdoshu. It says that at the moment that they designated the Ketaydes or the Mincha, but B'Hamida they said this should go for a cup of Mincha, you already are not allowed to derive any benefit from it. Kodesh B'Kli, and once it was Kodesh B'Kli, Hukshu, it became Roi evenly Pasul B'Tful Yaim, that should become Pasul through a Tful Yaim. Over Mechus B'Kipurim, and also by Chus B'Kipurim. Says Gemara over Lina. How about overnight? Or if it goes overnight, Kodesh B'Kli in. If it was Kodesh B'Kli, only when the Menachs were sanctified through a Kli Shadis, it becomes Kedushas Aguf. Then it becomes to become possible Magal Tful Yaim. Like Kodesh B'Kli, like because man that it wasn't this Kodesh B'Kli, it doesn't have the Kedushas Damim, and therefore it cannot become, or it's not ready to become possible by a Tful Yaim touching it. So what do we see from here? We see that the Maga of a Tful Yaim doesn't passel only something that was Niskadish B'Kedushas Aguf. Because the Braisa tells you the Maga of a Tful Yaim passel the Ketayres once it was placed in Machdeshes, so it's a raya from the time that the Kedusha of Ketayres was that he designated the Kedusha of the Ketayres, became Kedushas Aguf, and not like Avchizda that says that it's only Kedushas Damin. So it says Gemara Elamai. Only what are you going to say that the Ketayres from when it was placed in Machdeshes, Kedushas Aguf? You're going to say it has a din as Kedushas Aguf? Elamata Tipasabilina. If so, if it has a Kedushas Aguf even while it's in the Machdeshes, if the night goes through, let it become pasul. So, why do we learn the Mishnah? The kmitza, the levaina, the spices that they would remove from the kmitza of the mincha, and the ketayres, and the minchas, habi kayanim, and the minchas kayam ashur, minchas nesachim, meilim behem. That mechuyev mishum meila from the misha hugdeshu, from when they designated it that it should be a mincha or ketayres, or from when they made it into a keli, it became the isamila became is chal on it.
As soon as they designated this, they're going to use it
For anything. For kodesh has a din. The din meila applies to it that you cannot use it for your personal needs. And if you kodesh b'kli, then it says huchshiru lipasa b'nagis tful yain. Then once it was designated in a kli, it became step up that it becomes possible tful yain. Chusik Kippurim, and also by from a Chusik Kippurim touches it. Uvelina, that's all talking about. Or Uvelina kach b'kli in, like kach b'kli like. By lina, it depends if it was kach b'kli or not. So it's mashma by tful yain. Okay, so let's go like this. Belina, it says when it will be chayiv, or when does it become pasul through lina? Only if it was mugdish b'kli. But if it wasn't mugdish b'kli, it doesn't become pasul belina.
So what still does it have?
Huh?
What status status.
So it has. What do you mean? What psul? It doesn't have any psul if it wasn't mukdash b'kli. So, the, yeah, we said that the Ketores.
Mukdash b'kli, then there's any sulina.
He says that the Ketores doesn't become royally possible lina from when it was placed in the machdashes. Right? It has to be mukdash b'kli in order that it should become possible lina, which is the opposite of what Rav Chisda had said, that the moment that it's called kedushas, I'm sorry, it's the opposite of what we just brought down from the Braisa, that once it goes in the machdashes, it has a din of kedushas haguf.
So would be another possible.
It should become possible lina, and here it's mas
without the case.
without being mukdash b'kli. And before we said, and now we're saying that dafke was mukdash b'kli. Amalei lina comment. You're being a rai from lina. It says, "Come on, shiny Tatus. Tatus is different. Its looks does not change by going overnight. By a carbon, it gets more rotten if it goes overnight. But by the Tatus, the basa. But when you're talking about Tatus, it stays the way it is. Here he says, so therefore, by lina, it's not going to become puzzle. If through this that it went overnight, not because it was mukdash b'kedushas haguf, because by lina the maris, the looks of the Tatus doesn't change. Nothing happened to it. Nothing was affected. That's why it doesn't become puzzle b'kedushas lina, not because it wasn't mukdash b'kli. Has nothing to do with the kli. No chilik. It has nothing to do with the kli. He says it doesn't become possible for a different reason. Because it doesn't become, the looks doesn't change. It's not like basa. He says it doesn't be. He used the lashon mikivin shein akterius markiva or misapeshes. The Ketores, nothing happens to it when it goes overnight. Mashenkin, when it comes to basa, it says it becomes a little bit rough. By lina, by Ketores, it's not going to passel it.
Oh, so really
it's not possible, and it has nothing to do because it was the reason you wanted to say. So we thought the only reason why it's not becoming possible because it's not mukdash b'kli. But if it would be mukdash b'kli, it would become possible. Yeah, he says it has nothing to do with it.
No one made a statement. They were thinking.
Yeah. So really, you can say even b'machdashes it has the din of kedushas haguf. Really, you could say it does have a din of kedushas haguf.
Why now?
Because what?
Because we don't have to come on to a keli.
No, right. We don't have to come on to keli. That's his kasha. So I'm sorry. Really, you'll say. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Really, I'll say that it doesn't have. Even without, you can't prove either way if it has a kedushas haguf or not. You have no raya that. So really, you could say there's no kedushas haguf. There's no kedushas haguf, and there's a difference between Ketores, right? There's a difference between Ketores and behemoths. That's what we want to say. Okay. Says Yimona Mekoma came kasha. Nevertheless, we have a kasha. Even if you're going to learn like Rabbi Yochanan that it does have a kedushas haguf, even if you're going to learn like Rabbi Yochanan that the Ketores, even while it's in machdashes, has a kedushas haguf, and they're similar, and he brought a raya that it could be transferred. Says the Gemara, still, even if you bring that proof and by comparison, Rabbi Yochanan holds it's compared, right? He says, the Gemara brings down that what was that? Gemara Makbel's Einay Chacha Rabba L'Div Rabbi Yochanan Shama Hadav Shakabana Sim Kigayim Mois HaKetores Say Tminum Shalei Yitzachu Nivdem Afa Pish Yesh Bem Kedushas Haguf. According to Rabbi Yochanan, it does have Kedushas Haguf, right? And they are similar, just like by the Ketores you say it can be transferred the Kedushas Haguf onto the money that they paid for the Ketores. So too, by the Tmidim, the leftover poor animals could be transferred with other money and rebuy it again with the new shkalim. Even though they're both Kedushas Haguf, so the Chayim. So Kedushas Haguf. So that's his raya. He says, nevertheless, mikol makom kasha. Even if you bring me a raya from Treides, we still have a kasha. How did you take out the kedusha from something that the kedusha permeated the guf? How could money?
So the same thing like Treides, no?
The same thing. He's asking on all the cases. How could it be? You gave me an answer. It's similar to Ketaitis. So what? We still have a problem. How could the money redeem it? So Rabbi says, because he says from the inception, from the time they put the 4 animals into the pen, or from the time, right at the beginning when they made the Ketaitis, they made a Tanai right there that if it's not going to be needed, it's Kedushas Damin. So l'chatchila, it never allowed that the Kedushas HaGuf should permeate on things that are not needed.
So was there a Kedushas Guf or was there?
He says only on those that we're going to use for the kabbanis, or only those Ketaitis that will be used. But whatever that remains was l'chatchila set up in such a way it shouldn't have Kedushas HaGuf. So then the Kedushas HaGuf never was chal. That's how I understand it. Amar Rabba, la bezdin masna aleim. He uses the lashon das bezdin lahasnis meirosh al hadvar ma'im lekabanis tzibur, like this. Im hutzechu, if it's going to be needed for the kabanis to be sacrificed in that same year with the money of the shkolm of that year, hutzechu, then it becomes nigdash b'kedushas haguf. But the imlav, but even if you're not going to use it for the tzibur, you're not going to sacrifice it on the mizbeach, then it'll have a din of kedushas damin. So he says, so right. So he how did he make? How did it transfer? He says it's not transferring. It was the kedushas haguf. It was never chal. It was only chal on those that will have to be used. That's how it seems like the pshat. So, it's not a stretch. You can understand it that way. How it can be.
It's not a stretch. It's somersault.
Okay.
Stretch is the wrong word.
Amalei Abaye. So Abaye said back to the Abba. He asked, "Amar, who the Amar?" But you, meaning Rabba, you yourself said, "Higdish zacha ledamav." If somebody designated ayil, which is a zacha. Tamin ledamav. The meaning that he said the money should be for kedushas, it should be designated for oila, right? That the money of this animal should be used. Take this animal, sell it. I'm giving the worth of the animal as oila, not the animal itself. I'm giving the worth of the animal as oila. So it says no.
So what do you do with the money?
Oh, 1 minute. He gave the animal. And he said, "I'm giving only the worth of the animal for to buy a oila." Says, "You want to cut this because
So what did he actually give money?
He gave the worth of an animal. So they take the animal. It says, if he showed this animal, they kaddish
Well,
with
he said the worth of this
animal. So they grab the animal. Yeah, it becomes kaddish with
Exit grabs the animal.
Yeah, they say because this is raiv for the oila itself. Why do you have to give money? They grab it. So you see, even how can you say that there's a Tanai that if it's not going to be needed, it's going to go for Kedushas Dam. And you see, if the guy says, he says himself, I'm only giving the dam of this animal for a carbon, has already Kedushas Haguf. So how can you tell me, but he put the animals were designated. They put all the animals for the carbon. So you can't say, it's not, on those that I don't need it to become Kedushas Dam. So the Chayri can't make such a deal. By Kedaitis also, both. By the animals too. It's extra 4 animals. You already put it in the pen. It has a Kedusha. Says, you want to like kasha. That's not a kasha. Why did the animal itself become Kadesh? Because he said the worth of this animal should go for Oila. Since this animal itself is right to be Oila, so therefore it has Kedusha Guf. When we said it doesn't have a Kedushas Haguf, the Amal l'demei nesachim, he says that the worth of this animal shall go for the nischayayin. The animal is not nischayayin. You can't make it into liquid. You use it.
What were the 6 animals there that you put?
There's only 2 is going to be used for sure.
Yeah, and the other 4.
So the other 4 are not going to be used. So they use it for the next. But now the next year they can't use it because it has to be from the shkolim of that year. And now you're already in Tavshin Pei
Where
Hey.
did the kedusha of the animals go leave?
He says it was never chal, just like when he says
But here you
it's
see
a
that
right-
it is chal then. Because he said
because it was able to be chal. Here, these 4 animals
we're all saying
cannot be chal on the next year because it was bought with the old shkolim. It was bought with the shkolim from Tavshin Pei Dalet. Now it's Tavshin Pei Hey, so it's not shaykh to be used. You can't use tmidim with these 4 animals. Tmidim can only be used from the shkolim of that year of Tavshin Pei Hey.
So what do you do with the animals? What do you do with it?
So you transfer it
Oh.
to the money, and then you buy it again with the new shkolim. So now you can use it for this year. So you want to ask Abai, in fact, Hashem?
You make a picnic bed.
Yeah, like. In fact, you want to ask Abai is the kasha from a Baraisa on the words of Rabbah that you said Lev Bezdin Masnale. Remember we said the way you're not taking away the Kedusha Laguf. It was never chal. Says Gemara Abai is the Shaila Par V'Sosha Yom HaKippurim. We know the part, the Soyer we spoke about the whole time, the Sirah Pnimi, the Geil Hashem, the Sirah Chitza, and there was also a part that was brought for the Kohen. She'avdu, and it got lost before they wanted to shach the animals in the Salmon, they ran away. The Hifrish, and he separated other kabbanis. And now they found those animals. Yeah, so what do we do with those animals? We'll soon talk about it. So to the Seidim that was designated for a chatas to be mechap on the tzibur. The tzibur, lamashal, the Sanhedrin gave a hayra mutis. They gave a mistake. They gave a psak that you're allowed to kiss the Avodah Zarah. Yeah, whatever it was, and the Yidden did it. So if them that bring in Siri Avodah Zarah, you have to bring a Siri Avodah Zarah. What happened when they brought it? It got lost. Shavdu. And there were mafish, others in its place. Says Gemara Kulan Yamusa. They all have to die. The animals, when you find them,
You have to kill them.
you can't use it for any other kabbanis. They all have to. You have to leave. You have to, right, and not just for there's also the Pavasoy of Yom Kippurim, Yamusu, just like a chatas that somebody
let them go
until they die, not till it gets a moment and then you redeem it. No,
You kill right
you
away.
let them die. You leave them there. You don't kill them. You don't feed them. It dies. Like a chatas, somebody who designated a chatas and he passed away. So that you can't use that carbon for anything. You have to let it die. Or even if a yachid who designated a chatas and he lost it, you can, and then they find it, you cannot use it.
Could you replace somebody else?
You can't use it for anything else. You have to leave.
Replace another chatas.
He took a different chatas, yeah,
If you found
and
the
then
old
they
one.
found the old one. The Rabbi Yehuda, that's the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon name him Yiru At Sheyistavu. Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon say, no, you don't leave it to die. No, you pasha it, you feed it till it gets a mum. And then once it has a mum, v'yimachru. And they sell it, it goes out to Chulim, the Yiplu, the main Dava,
Where's the money going?
and the money goes from the Dava.
Oh, you don't.
Yeah.
He still has a certain kedusha.
Because the only one that we say is, according to Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon, the only one that we do kill is only by a yachid, not by a tzibur. She'ein chatas tzibur mesa. He said, Salach l'maish Sinai, a chatas hamesis was only said by a chatas yachid. That's halach l'maish Sinai, not by a chatas tzibur. That's how Rabbi Lazar Rabbi Shimon learned. Says the Gemara B'Hamai, why should the original behemoths why should the din of the original behemoths be like the Braisa says? According to Rabbah, we should say, you're saying Yamusa, right? You said that it has to die. Why should it die? Say, Lev Bezdin, Masna Leim. That Bezdin said, if you're going to use it, yeah, it has the Kedusha,
You can't use it.
but if it got lost and it was never used, so it has no din of Kedusha. Why do you kill it? Don't kill it. It should be a good animal. Leima, lay, best, and master layim. Say to begin with, you make the tonight. When he brought this sar, the par and the sar, or this siri avodah zarah, they made it tonight. If we're going to actually use it, perfect. If this, there has no kedusha. Says Gemara, havudim kamret. You're telling me, you're asking me from a case of kabbanis that got lost, that the leb bezdin mas aleh, you want to apply that takana? Shani avodim lo yishchichi. A case of an animal that got lost is unusual. So if it's unusual, we're not going to apply leb bezdin mas aleh.
So what case will they
No. Oh, on something that's shchiach, like by the Tmidim, that's shchiach. At the end of the year, you're left over with 4 animals. Or the Keteiros, we always knew you're going to be left over with Keteiros. So, in fact, the Yimara had a Parah, meaning the Parah Haduma, the Lo Shchicha. We know it's very unusual. It says throughout the Bayis Ish Misheni, they only made 7 Paras Hadumas. Only 7. So it's very unusual. And nevertheless, we learned the time we learned that I said Parash Nivdes Al Kol Psul Sheiraba, that the Parah Aduma could be redeemed on any psul that happens to it. Meisa, if it died before it was slaughtered, Tibada, you could redeem it. If it wasn't yet Yishachtan and it died, you could redeem it as a dead animal. Yeah, Nishchata. But if it was Yishachtan, but it wasn't Yishachtan in the right place, it was slaughtered Ahar HaZeizim towards the Beis HaMikdash. So he didn't slaughter it in the right place. He could still redeem it. Matzah Acheres Na'ayimena. If he found another Parah Aduma which is even nicer, he can redeem this one. It's like just like by Isha, Rabbi Akiva said, Matzah. No, Sayimana, you can get rid of the previous one. Nishmas by design of Paris. But I'm saying that he's saying that if he found something better, by Parah Aduma, he could take the better one and redeem the old one. And he says, the only case that will be forbidden if he shechted it in the right place, Bahar HaZeisin, then Ein Lapdi Eilamis. Then there's no redeeming. Okay? So the Braisa teaches us that if he found something that's better, you could exchange it. So you see, Leb Bezdin Masna Aleim. The only reason because there was the Kedusha is not permeated, was not chal till you actually use it. So you want to shine the Parah. The Kachah Bedek Abayisi. Parah is way different. Parah Aduma never had, what makes it Kedusha Zagof? The Mizbeach. The Parah Aduma is not sacrificed on the Mizbeach. It sacrificed Bahar HaZeis. It wasn't Gittas the Kedusha for Kedusha Zagov when you bring it on the Mizbeach. The Parah Aduma was not sacrificed on the Mizbeach. It was sacrificed on Har HaZeis. So therefore it has the din of Kachay Bedek Abayis. It never had the Kedusha Zagov. In fact, if so, that the Kedusha Parah Aduma is, you're saying there's no Tanai Bezdin. You don't say Love Bezdin Masnaleim. Mesa, if the Parah died before it was slaughtered, or Nishchata, or it was slaughtered outside, not in the right place, the Parah could be redeemed. How can you say that? Habinon Hamadu Hadacha. He says, I have a problem. You cannot redeem an animal until it's standing on its feet, and you evaluate it. It says in the pasuk. Let me see where he brings down the pasuk 17 over here. It says over here in 16. The Hamid es habehim lefnei hakoyin. The herich hakoyin oisa. Only, but if it's dead, you can't stand up a dead animal. Forget about it. Let's try. So he says. So once the Parah was yeshachtan or it died, it cannot say. Here it says umishanishchata Parah ishemeisa. So how can you say that you can redeem it? In order to redeem it, you have to be able to put it on its feet. So who does this follow? Rabbi Shimon. The Hama that Rabbi Shimon says, Kachim Mizbeach Hayu B'chlal Hamad V'Haracha. Kachim Mizbeach, that needs something that's sacrificed in the Mizbeach. Only the behemoths that were mugda designated for the Mizbeach and were niskachu b'kedushas hamizbeach, then it needs Hamad V'Haracha. If you want to redeem it, to evaluate it, you need to evaluate. But behemoths that were mugdish lebedek habayis, and it was, which is only kedushas damim, there it doesn't say the din of Hamad V'Haracha. That's according to Reb Shimon. So he said that. So we said that's why this Mishnah follows Reb Shimon, right? That you can do Hamad V'Haracha and para aduma is different. We explained why. By don't we say lev bezdin? Why don't we say? I'm saying why do we say that it couldn't be exchanged, even though it's unusual? We don't use the lashon lev bezdin masna alayim because lev bezdin here it was never kedushas haguf. It was only kedushas mammon. Kedushas damin. If it's Rab Shimon, you're saying this Mishnah follows Rab Shimon, and that's why you don't need Hamad Ba'aracha. Says Gemara, it's impossible. Ema Seifa, it says in the Seifa, Shchata Agabe Ma'arachta, Ein La P'diya Elamis. It says if it was slaughtered in the right place, there's no redeeming whatsoever. So V'atanya we learned in Abraisa, Rab Shimon Noima, Para Mitama Tuma Soichlen. That the Para Aduma, the B'sar Para Aduma, that was geshachtin in the right place, is considered as a oichel benageya to the dinim of tuma. That it could be if it became tama, it could be metama others. It's oichel, even though when it comes only oichel could be used, could be only oichel could only be metama. Only oichel in your tuma, only something that's mutter to give to a goy to eat. Only such macholim could be metama. But the boss of a para aduma is asked to even give it to a guy to eat. So if it's asma no, how could you say it's bechal oichel that it has the din tuma? Says Gemara hoyel v'hoysel la shas hakosher. The only reason is because since it was you were able to redeem it, since it's basar that was royal livdaisei, kol royal livdaisei kilu padui. Something that's right to redeem, it's as if it was redeemed. And here, this para aduma was right to be nivda. So
therefore has a status of oichel.
So therefore has a status of oichel. V'amarish Rosh says, Rab Shimon, para nivdis, even al gav maharachta, even if it was placed in the right place, even if there was nishchita. If you found another pot in its place, a better one, you could redeem it for the better one. You could redeem this one for the better one. So since there was a shas, a shas that was, there was a time that was very lachila because you were able to exchange it. So therefore, it's considered as oichel inyan tuma. So you see, according to the Shita Rav Shimon, that you can redeem a para aduma even after it was yishacht and behechsher. Because, right, that's how we're proving that it falls in the dinim of Tumah. So that doesn't follow according to the Baraisa. How could you say this Baraisa is following up Shimon? That because of Hamad Ba'aracha, you said, L'chayda, you need Hamad Ba'aracha to be paid there. And you answer, no, it follows up Shimon, you don't need. But L'chayda, Reb Shimon, if it goes according to Reb Shimon, the Baraisa doesn't follow, the Sefer of the Baraisa doesn't follow Reb Shimon. Because according to the Sefer Baraisa, if it was designated for, if it was geshachtim in the right place, so then we said there's ein loy p'diya elamis. There's no redeeming at all. And then Reb Shimon holds that you could be paid it.
It's only Beni Kabayis. It's only given.
We're not going to go into that, but B'Pei Mamish doesn't follow Reb Shimon. You can't answer that it follows Reb Shimon. So why Taka could you redeem it in the other cases? Rabbi, the only reason why you consider it's Kedushas Damim because you said it goes according to Reb Shimon, right? And that's why he says it's not. If so, we had a kasha. It's unusual. And unusual things we don't say lev bezdin mashna aleim. So we said no. It's not because it's unusual. It's because it's Kedushas Damim. So we said if it's Kedushas Damim, how could you redeem it? You need a Hamad Barach. And we said it follows Reb Shimon. So we said it cannot follow Reb Shimon because the last din of the Brayso says that if it was sacrificed in the right place, so then the din is ein la p'diya elamis. And according to Reb Shimon, you do have a p'diya, so it doesn't go according to Reb Shimon. So it comes out that we say lev bez masna aleim even in the place where it's unusual, like para aduma. Says Yimara only we have to say shiny para hoyel v'dameha yikarim. Para is different. Para, because you're right, it's unusual. It has, but it's still called. It's in the get of Kedushas Damim also. There's like an exception because it's very expensive. Like the Torah, like the story, the famous story that the Chachamim paid this guy Dama ben Nesina, they paid him 600,000 dinars of for a para aduma. So since it's so expensive, so therefore the Chachamim,
It's like a diamond.
it's like a mamish, like maybe more. Therefore the Chachamim said that by para aduma that you should be able to say lev
Nobody gave
bezna.
a donation to the
I'm sure but people did. The guy with para aduma, they made that if they made that din that if you're not gonna use it, so the hegdish will be able to redeem it, give it back, and get back the tremendous eitzah that they paid out for it.
So who's going to buy it?
Whoever they bought it from, or
They paid
maybe
the top dollar, right?
Yes.
6,000, right? Is it-
so maybe they'll have somebody else that will take it in exchange and hold on to it for the next para
Hang it
aduma.
up on the wall, huh?
It'll be like,
But I heard a story that somebody wanted to buy a para aduma for that the Mashiach is imminent, and he wanted to hold on to it because he wanted to be the one to be able to provide it. Yeah. Amar, the Tana of the Brisa said Mesa. If the para died before it was slaughtered, tipada, it gets redeemed. What are you doing? You're going to redeem the para aduma what? To give it to?
It's like an avela, right?
Yeah. What are you going to give it to? Klavim? What are you going to give it to? That's a bizayon. You're taking the din is eichlin shal hekdesh, which is not reilachis yisol. So you don't redeem it to give it to. It's a bizayon. How could the Brisa say that the potter that died, you redeem it, and what? It's a nevela, so you're going to give it to the dogs? I mean, no, because of its hide, the skin. That's what you're going to use it for. The kaime bezdin, in fact, what kaime bezdin? Does bezdin make takonis just to get the hide of the animal? Love bezdin masna alein just to allow to redeem it, just to get the hide. And people say by a camel, which is very rare, so the ear of a camel is even worth it. So here also the ear of the paraduma is even worth that it should be redeemed. The Chachamim said, what's if the Seirei Hamusafim, you remember we learned that the Seir Bachutz forgives on only a Yediyah Achreina, with no Yediyah at the beginning. We said the Seir Haragolim forgives if there was no Yediyah, Loi B'tchila, Loi B'asrei. The Seir Dash Chadashim, according to Shimon, is for Adam Torah that ate Kachim Tmei. So what's the din if the Seir Hamusafim, could they be makiv one for the other? Let's say they designated a sawyer for bachutz and it ran away, and they found it. Could you use it for siri haragolim? Could you use it for siri hashchadashim? He says, yeah, you could. You can use it. So the Chacham said to Reb Shimon, according to Reb Shimon, each one forgives for a different aveda. Each one forgives for a different aveda. We said that the Sarah Chutz forgives for only a Yediyah B'Rishayna. I mean a Yediyah at the end. And we said the Sarah Gilim is for no Yediyah, Loi B'Tchil, Loi B'Asei. And Sarah Shchadashim forgives for Adam Torah Shachal Kachim Tmeim. So they all come for different Avedas. Amalahan, Kulam Bayin L'Chapa Altamis Mikdash V'Gdashav. He says they all have in common that they're all coming to Milchapa on Aveda that happened to do with Kachim or the Beis Hamikdash that he entered while it was Tameh. In fact, your mother Lema, why don't you say simple? Forget it. The reason why you can use that carbon that was found, because Lev Bezdin Masna Aleim. Say, Bezdin is only puts in Kedushas Aguf only on those carbonates that you're using. But if you didn't use it, then it has a din like chulin.
Well, don't say that because they both have the same income.
You don't have to say because they all have in common Migdash v'Kedasha. Say because Lev Bezdin Masna Aleim.
That's what you say.
That's much cleaner. It was never Kaddish. It's chulin. Says the Gemara, Rav Shimon Kamet, are you coming to ask on Rabba in this Indian from the words of Rav Shimon? He says Rav Shimon Leslie Lev Bezdin Masna Aleim. Rav Shimon himself doesn't even hold of that concept that the Lev Bezdin, that they can make it tonight, if it's not going to be used for the Beis Hamikdash, you won't have Kiddush Zaguf. He doesn't hold of that.
What happened with the whole Gemara?
That was only according to Rabbah and Rabbi Yechonah.